What's it like to play the Nintendo Entertainment System? The Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
The Nintendo Entertainment System is the most important video game console ever made. Full stop. The NES is recognized as bringing the video game industry back from the dead after the infamous crash of 1983. It debuted in North America in 1985 and became a fixture in homes across the globe until it was discontinued in 1995. The system introduced some noteworthy breaks from the consoles that came before it, like a front-loading design to mimic the look of VCRs, as well as the introduction of the very first D-pad. But every video game console is only as strong as the software that accompanies it. The lineup of games on the Nintendo Entertainment System is one of the main reasons that so many fans still consider this to be the best system ever made. With all that out of the way, here are our top 10 NES games of all time.
Number 10.
Sports games didn't really hit their stride until the 16-bit era, but there was one big exception to this on the NES, Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl was originally an arcade game that was ported to the NES in 1987, and was the first football game to include the names of actual NFL players. Regardless of who your favorite team was in real life, nearly every game started with a dash to be the first to select the Raiders. All because of Bo Jackson, an amazing athlete in real life that was made nearly unstoppable in this game. Selecting offensive and defensive plays was a game of cat and mouse, where selecting the correct play on defense would result in a sack or a tackle for a loss. Tecmo Bowl was also included in the NES Classic Edition with updated rosters, although due to EA holding an exclusive NFL license, only the players' numbers and not names were included. To this day, Tecmo Bowl remains one of the most popular sports games ever made.
Number 9.
Picking up where TMNT 2, the arcade game, left off on the NES, TMNT 3 takes nearly everything TMNT 2 was and improves on it, offering better gameplay and graphics. As would become a staple in the later Ninja Turtle beat-em-up games, each turtle now had his own unique special move. This game, like most beat-em-ups, really thrives in its co-op play. Most people who have memories of growing up with this game will inevitably recall playing this with their siblings, their friends, their parents, whoever. This game was a huge hit, even winning EGM's NES Game of the Year in 1992. Don't let the box art fool you though, there are no Triceratons in this game.
Number 8.
The game that started it all. Super Mario Bros. Was directly responsible in setting the course for every video game that followed, and it's not hyperbole to say that there would be no PS4, Xbox One, or Switch today if not for it. Mario Bros. First appeared in the 1983 arcade game Mario Bros., but they didn't truly become super until their release on the NES. Super Mario Bros. Follows the adventures of Mario and Luigi as they make their way through the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue Princess Toadstool from the evil Bowser. Remarkably, this is the same basic formula that nearly every Super Mario game has followed since. With pixel-perfect controls that some modern games should be jealous of, Super Mario Bros. Is a prime example of the age-old argument that gameplay is king. Before games included tutorials to hold your hand through learning the game, there was World 1-1. In this level, you learned everything you would need to know for the rest of the game, besides swimming and defeating Bowser. Walk into your first Goomba, you learn that they kill you. Try jumping into those question blocks, you realize they will reward you with power-ups or coins. Try jumping on a Koopa Troopa, and you realize they don't die in one hit like the Goombas do. And then there is the magical moment when you get your first Fire Flower and Star Power. Everything about World 1-1 is a microcosm of the game as a whole. While there have been better Mario games, there has never been any more important than the original Super Mario Bros.
Number 7.
Contra on the NES is considered one of the original run-and-gun games. Spawning sequel after sequel after sequel, some better than others, the original Contra is one of the most important games from the 8-bit era. Playing as one of two characters, Bill or Lance, you take on the evil Red Falcon organization, using numerous weapons obtained along the way to blast your way through 8 stages. Finding the game too difficult? Have no fear. Enter in the now famous Konami code and receive 30 lives. This is one of the first, if not the first, cheat codes that I remember learning in my childhood. Many games, still to this day, can probably trace their roots back to the original Contra. While not the best in the series, it is still one of the all-time greats on the NES.
Number 6.
The Blue Bomber has been a mainstay in video games for the past 30 years, appearing in over 40 mainline games and spin-offs. One of the biggest arguments in this series is which game was better, Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3. For us, we give the edge to Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2 introduced a couple of important tweaks that helped gamers out, like the energy tanks for refilling health and the password system to save your progress. The lineup of robot masters in Mega Man 2 is arguably the most iconic in the series, and the soundtrack is consistently mentioned among the best in the industry. At the end of the day, Mega Man is all about pixel-perfect gameplay, and that is on full display here. Navigating through difficult platforming sections, learning enemy placements, and making the most out of the brief invincibility you get after taking a hit are key to making your way to Wily's castle. Other Mega Man games added more to the series, but none did it better than Mega Man 2.
Number 5.
Startropics is one of the most criminally underrated games from the NES. While benefiting from taking a lot of inspiration from The Legend of Zelda, Startropics never seemed to fully get out from underneath its shadow either. Similar to Zelda, Startropics gives the player many enemies to vanquish, levels to explore, puzzles to solve, and bosses to defeat. In addition to this, the game also includes a top-down overworld map similar to many RPGs of the era. Spawning one sequel at the very end of the life of the NES, the franchise never took off into the 16-bit era and beyond, leaving everyone to wonder what could have been.
Number 4.
After the misstep that was Castlevania II, Konami decided to go back to the basics for the third installment in the series. Gone were the more action-adventure and RPG-heavy elements, with a focus put back on platforming, action, and well-designed linear levels. Castlevania III: Dracula's Curse took everything that was great about the first game and added multiple playable characters, branching level paths, backtracking elements that would set the stage for Symphony of the Night, multiple endings, and more backstory to the Belmont family. The biggest of these additions was Alucard, the son of Dracula, who after his mother's death decided to side with humanity against his father, and who became a mainstay throughout the rest of the series. All of this added up to not only one of the best 2D Castlevanias ever created, but one of the best ever NES games as well. The game was so important that it recently had a Netflix animated series based off of its story.
Number 3.
Video games based off of TV shows or movies are typically viewed as just being a quick cash grab, trying to capitalize off of the success of these franchises that already exist and are usually just flat out bad. DuckTales absolutely bucks that trend. Unlike many video games based off of other media, DuckTales offers nearly flawless controls, fun, non-linear gameplay, not to mention a fantastic soundtrack. DuckTales was a huge success for the NES, becoming Capcom's #1 selling title on the system. Widely regarded as one of the best games from this era, it actually yielded an HD remake nearly 25 years after its original release. The game plays out across 5 levels: African mines, the Amazon, the Himalayas, Transylvania, and the Moon, each with their own unique layout, enemies, and boss battle. Scrooge McDuck uses his cane as a weapon, knocking rocks, barrels, and other objects into enemies, or by using it as a pogo stick to bounce on their heads, something Shovel Knight would borrow heavily from decades later. A sequel would follow years later, however, owing to being released near the end of the NES's life and not offering much new compared to the first title, this game did not achieve anywhere near the same success.
Number 2.
To say that The Legend of Zelda was ahead of its time would be a gross understatement. Most notably, it was the first open-world, non-linear game, and the first NES game to offer battery backup to save your game. That last statement may sound funny in 2018, but it was truly groundbreaking over 30 years ago. The formula laid out in The Legend of Zelda would remain the same for nearly every entry in the series. Get your sword, beat a dungeon, get an item that helps you in your next dungeon, and repeat until you get the Master Sword, fight your way through more dungeons as you make your way to Ganon and save Princess Zelda. It is simple in concept and perfect in execution. The formula flat out works. On top of that, Koji Kondo created one of the most iconic soundtracks inside and outside of video games. Heck, my brother just went on a Caribbean cruise for his honeymoon, and the main lobby featured a Russian violinist and cellist who were overheard playing the overworld theme on multiple occasions. The Legend of Zelda even included a secret second quest, which became playable upon beating the game, or by entering Zelda as your name to start the game. This second quest switched things up by changing the placement of dungeons and items and ratcheting the difficulty up to 11. All in all, The Legend of Zelda is a game that has stood the test of time, and is still considered by many to be the greatest game of all time. Speaking of greatest games of all time,
Number 1.
When Super Mario Bros. 1 released, it was like nothing else ever seen in a video game before. After the hiccup that was Super Mario Bros. 2, or at least the version we got in North America, Super Mario Bros. 3 needed to be great. Mario 3 delivered on that and then some, taking the world by storm. This game improved on the original in every way imaginable. Better graphics, more power-ups, better sound and music, varying locales for levels, a world map, unique boss fights, the list goes on and on. The game was widely viewed as the best video game ever at the time of its release, and the fact that nearly 30 years later it is still viewed as one of the all-time greatest games ever is very impressive, to say the least. After doing our own Let's Play, going through the game in its entirety, we can say this game did not lose a single step over all these years. The controls are superb, the levels a perfect combination of difficulty and enjoyment, and when you finally square off against and defeat Bowser, you truly feel as though you've accomplished something. There are great games, there are 10 out of 10 games, and then there are perfect games. This game is truly perfection in every way, shape, and form.